So I'm excited to be here with you, Kim.
Mm-hmm.
And today we'll be talking about, well, in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month, which ends today, we're going to be talking about what cultural traditions are important to us individually. And maybe you guys can also share what cultures you guys have in your life. And maybe you're discovering that, especially as where we are kind of in two traditions, I would say. We have like our American tradition, which I'm going to put this and I'll explain in a little bit. But we also have like our family's culture. So kind of two combined. So if you are discovering that, I think for me, leaving my country very early, there was a lot of things that I had to relearn as I'm here in the US. But we'll get into that. In the meantime, though, I want to ask Kimberly the icebreaker question, and it's what is your favorite exercise at the gym?
I don't know. It honestly depends how I'm feeling. Because sometimes, like, I don't want to hit legs just because it requires me, like, I lift more because legs, I guess, are easier in a way. So I lift more and then I'm, like, tired and I'm like, oh, I don't want to hit legs. But I feel like I'm going to say my favorite for upper body and my favorite for legs. My favorite for upper body is incline chest press with dumbbells. And then for lower body, my favorite would be hip thrust.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh, wow. If you all didn't know, Kim goes to the gym very often. Mm-hmm. She inspires me to continue going to the gym.
And what's yours?
For me, funny is I love doing push-ups. I think that's my favorite one. Maybe it has to do with the fact that I couldn't even do one, and on my knees was so hard to do even one. So just kind of slowly getting better and better, and now being able to do 5, 10. It's not a lot, but I really feel really proud of myself, and it's the only exercise that I really push myself to the max because of how much I've improved in it. When it comes to legs, I don't know, running maybe? I think running is something that I really enjoy. I haven't been doing it very often now, but it's something that I really like. And maybe, let's see, when it comes to lower body. Oh, I love doing calves.
Calves?
There you go. Calves exercises. I don't know. It's something that I really enjoy.
I don't. I feel like it's so boring.
I just really doing it with my own body weight is something that I find really interesting because I full concentration mode and I'm like, I need to do, different exercise with my calves. Why is that a tongue twister for me? But anyways, with that, I'm going to kind of tie it in together. How does your family see you exercising, working out? Is that something in your culture that is very often people do it, or it's very seen as something new?
I would say it seemed as something new just because it's not really something that's, I guess, promoted in our culture. You don't really see that many Hispanics working out, but it's more like just the younger generation that is starting to. And then, but I'm not saying like everyone thinks this way, but I think for like my family, they think like exercising isn't really like too much of a like big cultural thing as much. And they just see it as like just eat right in a way and like you'll be fine. Okay. But in my family, my mom used to work out, and then my older two brothers work out as well.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I work out. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm I think we're both from Guatemala. We have our roots are from there. And if you go back home, you haven't gone to...
I haven't been to
You haven't been there. But normally, our exercise back home isn't people going to the gym. They do a lot of physical labor. Well, it depends on where you are from, but bless you. It's okay. From at least from my hometown, let it out. It's okay. What was I saying? Oh, from my hometown, there's a lot of farm workers, agricultural work. So a lot of their physical activity was being on the fields, planting for especially corn, because that's a big main thing in our hometown. So that was more of their exercise and activities, and a lot of them can't really afford having cars. So it was them moving around with their feet. So traditionally speaking, like that is something that's been in our culture. Nowadays, you see a lot of people running and actually being at the gym. And I've gotten comments of like, you work out so much, but what's that actually doing for you? And it's like, oh, really more for my health, right?
I was about to say that.
Yeah. So I wanted to tie it back into some cultural things that maybe you have right now, or that you had and you're kind of letting go, or just kind of tying it all together. But I'm going to start with you. What are cultural traditions that are really important to you? If you have any.
I don't know. I don't really know if these would be considered cultural traditions, but the first thing that comes to mind is more like on Christmas or like holidays or something like special. I don't know if you do this, but like our family or like my family or like my mom makes tamales, and she doesn't as much anymore, but like back then she would more when it was like either like Christmas or like Thanksgiving or like something like really big that happened that's like really good, something like that. Tamales. And then another cultural thing would be, well, not for my family specifically, but I've seen in my cousins, they do for Christmas and Thanksgiving, they I don't know what it's called. It's like where they put like baby Jesus, and do you know what I'm talking about? Like they put that up like a really big setup of like Jesus.
I haven't heard about that, or I haven't even seen one.
You might. I don't know what it's called. I know there's a name for it, and I think you probably do know what I'm talking about. But it's like you put like Jesus
for Thanksgiving Mary, or Christmas,
for both, and it's like how it's like it stays there throughout both holidays until like the end of January, probably take it out. And it's like huge. Like it's basically like kind of welcoming Jesus. Wait, is this even cultural? It's more like religious and cultural, I guess.
They kind of embed. I think cultural also includes religion in a way. Yeah.
But it's that my cousins do it. We've never done it in our household, but in my cousins they do. One of my what is it? My okay, I don't even know. Okay, my dad's cousin.
So your cousin. Your second cousin?
No, but she's my what is that? My godmother.
Oh, tu madrina.
Yeah, my madrina.
Okay.
She does like a really big one at her house, and she puts like a whole setup. Like you put like the house basically, Mary, Jesus.
I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't think I've seen one in a really long time.
Okay. But yeah, just those two is what I could think of.
So you mentioned tamales. Have you ever helped your mom make some?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, you have?
Yeah. So it takes so long. And my mom would sometimes make like a bunch of them or like little of them. And then I would help with really like the masa, and then putting like the chicken in it and like all the sauces and stuff in it. And then
And that, well, in Guatemala, it's a huge tradition where you have tamales, or a lot of people call them paches.
Paches,
There's different variations.
Paches are different than actual, because when I think of like the tamales, there's different types of tamales. The ones that my mom makes are the ones with masa, like they're like squishy masa.
Squishy.
Like squishy tamales, and then those take like a really long time. Like my mom would be making me stir it, and I'd be stirring it probably for like an hour, just like just only stirring it for an hour straight. My hands would get so tired. But yeah, I know there's that. And then for paches, I know they're like harder, like it's the harder masa.
Interesting.
Yeah,
this is why we kind of wanted to talk about like in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month, because there's so much culture mixed in all together, and they have their own uniqueness, and there's not a right or wrong, but it's more about learning from other cultures. And even though we're from the same place, we can have different things. Because for me, the tamales that are made out of masa, we call them, and they look like little round ones. They're called chuchitos. chuchitos. And then the tamales for us is the ones that are made out of rice. They can be made out of rice or papa. So potato. Papa,
Ooh, I
potato.
don't think I've ever had that.
Or it could be made of masa too, but I've heard people call it pache. Pache is because of the leaf they use. They use it's not banana leaves, but it's something similar to banana leaves that they use. And the other one they use corn leaves. The chuchito used corn leaves. Nowadays, people are so this is what I've kind of asked my grandma and kind of understood, like, why do we only do tamales, during the Christmas times and all that thing. And she had mentioned to me that the reason why they did it that way was because it was the only time where a lot of the families would gather enough money to make a really good meal for their families. And what a good meal back then meant meat, because meat wasn't consumed often. One, because it's expensive, and two, a lot of families just couldn't afford it. So tamales was like a significance of like, this is a good meal. And nowadays, you can kind of make it anytime you want. I personally prefer to have tamales during the holidays, just to hold that tradition. When someone sells tamales during the, not during the traditional times, I tend not to eat it, just because growing up, I remember the smell of the hojas that they use. What is hojas in English? The leaves that they use. There's such a unique smell to it when it's being steamed, and so that just reminds me of my childhood. And whenever I smell that, I'm like, oh, it's like the holidays. It reminds me of that. What about you, though? Is there something in memory of tamales, and for example, that connects with you?
Not really. Just really going back to when I was younger, and there was, now for like the holidays, my family doesn't like gather up or anything, but they used to. So then that's what it reminds me mostly of. And then, as you said, you only eat tamales like during like Christmas or Thanksgiving.
I prefer.
Yeah,
I prefer that.
If someone gives me tamales, I'll eat it.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's just
But I
something.
don't eat it often. Like, I'd say maybe like I eat a tamale like once, like out of the besides from like holidays, maybe like I eat like 4 throughout the year that like aren't because of the holidays or anything.
A lot of families around our area actually make them and sell them.
Yeah, that I never buy them though, unless like someone is like a family member makes them.
Yeah, I've had a lot of family members, and my mom always orders to support. But when it comes to tamales with the rice, I'm like, I stay away, because I'm like, oh no, that's just for a special occasion. But something that I found interesting, that now that I'm 22 years old, and I'm soon to be kind of leaving the nest, which means like being on my own, and there's going to be a time where I'm going to have to be, cooking for my family during the holidays. One of the biggest things that I really want to focus on right now is learning how to make tamales, chuchitos, atoles from scratch without my mom, because like I said, those are cultural traditions that are really important for me. Food is really important for me. So I hope that when I continue to grow, that I can have friends over and say, hey, I made something from where I'm from. And just that culture for me is so important. I don't know how to do a lot of the traditional foods. Do you?
No, I don't. I feel like tamales kind of, just because I've done it a few times with my mom in the past, but I feel like I can't really. I would still need someone to like help me just in case, because I don't have it exactly down, but I know like the basic process of making it.
Yeah, I'm with you. The funny thing that I asked my grandma to teach me how to make recado. Do you know what recado is?
Yeah.
I asked her to teach me how to make recado. And she said, great, I'll teach you. She taught me, and she was doing it in front of me, telling me like, this is the ingredient, this is the ingredient. And we were cooking together, but I kept asking her like, what are the measurements for what you're using?
You just gotta eye it.
She just looks at me and she's like, my eyes. And I was like, no way. And that was really hard for me because I'm used to like going on Google, searching up a recipe. But even if I search up a recipe about recado, it doesn't taste the same. There's a way that each family cooks something. It's so unique. And that's something that I agree that food and music can bring people together because everything is very unique to it. There's someone in the comments who mentioned the actual name of what you were talking about. Do you want to say?
It's un nacimiento.
Yes.
I think people might be saying it differently in different areas because that doesn't really ring a bell to me.
Interesting. That does ring a bell for me. Un nacimiento, yeah.
It doesn't ring a bell to me. I feel like it was called something else, but maybe that's the official name.
Who knows? Well, anyone know other names? Let us know.
Yeah.
So you kind of mentioned that if we talk about more of like, I grew up in a very Christian home, so Christmas isn't a thing that we really celebrated as much. I think coming here to the US for me was a big culture shock because there's a lot of things that we didn't do back home that as you go to school, you kind of see different cultures and you kind of, oh, that's interesting. And they teach you about it. So, for me, there's a lot of things that I've been learning about my culture that I didn't necessarily was giving much of the opportunity to kind of research on because I was small. And two, we were, when you're little, you kind of connected to your parent and where they go, you go. But if they don't go somewhere else, you don't really go somewhere else either. So you kind of don't see that. So that was for me like Christmas and Thanksgiving. That's all it's part of my culture now, but it wasn't originally. And I think even today, like I don't celebrate Thanksgiving and Christmas the way people do. I just kind of adapted that into my life in my own unique way. And who knows, maybe that's a culture that I'm starting that will pass on to, future generations, which is kind of really interesting to think about. Yeah.
I kind of want to ask you a question now. Okay, I didn't know that Hispanic Heritage Month, this might just be in the US, honestly. They have a theme every year. Did you know that?
I did not know that. That's new to me.
Yeah, they have a theme every year. And this year's theme for 2023 is...
You went back.
I went back a year. Okay.
That's okay. I'm cool with that. I'll be 21. I'm going to be still 21.
Okay, the theme is Latinos driving in prosperity, power, and progression in America.
Say it again.
Driving in prosperity, power, and progression.
Ooh, that's an
and progress. Sorry, progress in America.
Okay. How does that apply to you?
I don't know. I was gonna ask you.
Oh, okay.
What are your thoughts on that theme of this year? I didn't even know there was a theme every year.
So you said 3 words.
Prosperity, power, and progress.
Prosperity. That's a very good question. I can just say that one thing that I've been learning so much as someone who, I heard a podcast once just recently and someone said it so like, wow, that's how I can connect. And it's the fact where, well, to anyone who isn't born in America, and even if you are, I think you're often told you're this or that, right? You're Guatemalan or you're American or you're not American, but you're Guatemalan. But, if you go back home, people will consider you American. You're not Guatemalan enough to be Guatemalan. Like you're from America. And if you're here, you're considered not fully American, but you're considered Guatemalan. Like it was just like a 101. And now I've learned, and I think that's where I think of those words, is that I'm not from there or from here. And I wasn't born here, but ultimately the culture of America is really a mix of everything. So yeah, I'm from America, but I'm also Guatemalan, and I have two amazing cultures that kind of mix in together. And that's something that I'm really learning this year, especially saying that I'm everything, really. That I'm Guatemalan, yes, and I go back home. I'm part American, probably. Because I was raised here. I have a lot of things that are traditionally not Guatemalan, but they're traditionally known as American. But I've been taking what works for me, what I like, what I enjoy, that's helping me be a better person and help those around me. So I'm all of it. And something that has really been a highlight for me this year is really understanding that. So yeah, that would be kind of a little bit of my answer to that. I don't know if that kind of made sense.
I feel like for prosperity in what I see today in America, I'd say for Hispanics is that I feel like a lot of our generation, the generation of the ones who came over here, their children basically, have been gaining a lot more knowledge on that they need to help their parents in certain ways with like the law and everything. And I feel like they're being more educated on that than I'd say like 5 years ago. And like a lot of them are being more educated. They're telling their parents like, learn more about this. Like they should go take English classes just to help them out. They should learn the law. And I feel like a really big thing here is like learning the law and knowing your rights. And I feel like from like 5 years ago, not many people like thought of like, oh, I should learn the law, but now they are more.
Why do you think that? What's the burst, or in your opinion, or your observation, what was the that led to that?
Well, I'm saying this based on like what I see more on like social media and stuff, just because I mean, there was social media back then, but like it wasn't as popular. But I feel like I know also like family members that they never really gave the chance of like going to learn English as much. But then like a lot of them now are like learning English, or like have been learning English like throughout the past like few years. And yeah,
you said it. I mean, I'm not saying this is right, but I would totally agree with you that it has a lot to do with technology. And back then, like Facebook was a thing, but it was considered more like actually a social media platform. Yeah. Nowadays, it's evolved to more an educational route in many ways. A lot of more educators are online, kind of educating, lawyers, explaining what your laws are. The laws are your rights. And so that has a huge impact. And I love how you brought that in, because I do see that in myself and in you. I think you're in college right now and you're a first gen, and there's a lot of things that you're doing for yourself and you're learning. So I definitely see that connection with you, myself, and Javier as well, who is a first gen to graduate from college.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of us are, as the theme is power, we're gaining that power back.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
And then with the progress part, we're progressing as what is it? A cultural. We're all coming together and like being more impactful.
Yeah. I love how in many ways, and kind of what I mentioned is the understanding of this or that type of option. It's more of like, this is who I am, and I will embrace it. And it's hard. I know it's hard for a lot of people to accept, to understand that part, but we grew up in a very different generation. Like our parents, they grew up in a completely different culture, and we're growing up with their culture and kind of getting our own culture. I keep hitting this, sorry.
Yeah. And I just kind of wanted to also add on with the theme, seeing how a lot of parents or people who just come here just to look for like a better future, a lot of them take that power with them. Like an example would be your family. They got that power. Your family has their own businesses, something that I think a lot of people who come here are too scared to do. And your parents went to go get the right education, and they helped build that up. So it's really inspiring to other families, I think, to let them see that there are other families that are like them that came here. They didn't know much about anything, how America worked or anything, but they took that chance and took that leap to learn and grow from it.
Thank you. That means a lot. Yeah, it's definitely challenging. I mean, coming to a new place, you get a culture shock and new language. But if you really kind of go back to the roots, what were they coming for? And then I know that's a very, very like, in many ways, people understand. You know, my family came here looking for a better future, but they were carrying dreams that were from their family. So they didn't come just with their own dreams. They were carrying dreams of people back home. And, you know, us growing up, they had no choice, but they had to succeed, right? And success also means failure, right? They've gone through many challenges, and I've been there, and I growing up with my parents, so we kind of grew up together. My parents were really young, but I would say they did a really good job on keeping a lot of cultural things in my household. For example, I can say like the food kind of stayed the same, even if they couldn't find the right ingredients at times. They still managed a way to find ingredients to still have us to eat the same foods we would eat. The language. One thing I will say that I'm very disappointed with my parents is they know this. Is I have another language. It's our native language, which is Quiche. I grew up speaking that language. That's the only language I really felt confident speaking. When I came here, however, I was kind of forced in a way to not speak it because I had to learn Spanish and English. And so to this day, I don't speak Quiche 100%. I can understand it very, very well. So my family can't hide any secrets because I can hear what they're saying. But I have a hard time communicating with my grandma. And that really breaks my heart. And that's why I say culture is so important, because it isn't just a whatever thing. It also has to do with connecting with your great grandparents, your cousins, your aunts and uncles. It has a lot to do with that as well. And language is one. So for me, Spanish as well. And I want to ask you this because I just found myself recently in this challenge where at work, it's English. With my siblings, it's English. I email in English. I text in. It's always English, which is great. But I also have this other language, and it's Spanish. And we had an interview with the Mill Valley Film Festival. I had an interview with one of the girls that was there. I was trying to express what I was feeling, but I felt myself stuck, and my brain wasn't coming up with the words in Spanish. And I felt so disappointed in myself because I said, oh no, this is a huge part of me. And I feel like I can't lose this. And automatically I went home and I told my mom, we're not speaking English at home. It has to be Spanish because I cannot lose this. This is something so important. And I can speak Spanish, but there was just a moment where it made me feel like I couldn't speak it. So I wanted to ask you, has ever there been a moment like that where you felt like you were losing your culture and you wanting to dive back into it?
Yeah, I would say I've never been a fluent Spanish speaker till this day. I've taken like 3 years of Spanish, or last year was just like a semester of Spanish, and I'm still not really thriving in it. And I feel like I always feel really disappointed when I'm speaking to someone who's Hispanic and I'm trying to like communicate with them and trying to explain whatever it is, and I can't seem to find the right word to say, and I'm just like, and I try to just describe what I'm trying to say, but it makes me feel really like ashamed that I don't know like my language fully or anything. And it's just because I speak, as you said, like I speak English everywhere. The only time I really speak Spanish is like at my job. If there's someone who's Hispanic and they don't know English, and I speak to them in Spanish, and It's like honestly the only times I really speak Spanish, but I try my best to incorporate it as best as I can. And then with like reading, I can read Spanish. I'd say I'm better
Same.
at reading than speaking, and then I can read it. Typing it is meh, like in between. Like some, I don't know how to use like the zetas and all that stuff.
Los acentos, the
Yeah,
accents.
los acentos. I
That's
don't know how to
really
use that.
interesting because my parents don't know either
Don't know what.
how to use the accents.
Yeah, me.
Because we grew up, I think they learned.
Spanish wasn't really a language, wait, sorry, no. Spanish was never really a written language as much because there wasn't people in like other countries didn't really have that right education. That's what my mom had told me. She kind of like learned how to like write it and everything because like her she went to until high school. She went to school and then afterwards she didn't. She kind of just had to learn it. But otherwise, like a lot of kids in her town, she said that didn't go to school. They didn't know how to like write in Spanish. They knew how to speak it, but they didn't know how to write or read.
You're making me do like a moment of connection here because now that I think about it, in a way, at least for me, in a way, my parents kind of understand what I've gone through because they went to school to learn Spanish, but at home they spoke Quiche. So it's like me learning English and me speaking Spanish at home.
That's like with Quiche. Quiche isn't a written language.
Oh no, it's passed on from generation
Yes,
to
like
generation.
generation.
Nowadays, they're trying to write it and make sure it's written so that people can learn it. Because here's the thing. Back home now, a lot of people, my generation and younger, are in a way kind of, I don't know if they're ashamed or they think that speaking that language isn't smart, that they're losing that. And it's interesting because for me, I'm trying to gain that back.
Because I knew Quiche, honestly.
Because it's I don't know, for me it just fascinates me, the language, and it's very different. It's a lot using the throat, like the back of your throat. And so but it just made that connection. Like my parents were learning Spanish at school, but back home they spoke Quiche. So in a way they know what I've gone through. That sounds interesting.
Yeah. I like Spanish. Spanish has always been really hard on me. I've tried learning it for so long and it's not really sticking to me. I feel like I just need to practice speaking with someone a little more, someone who like is fluent and can really like correct me on things. I like when people correct me if I'm speaking to them in Spanish and they're like, oh no, you say it, or like you say it this way, and I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. So then I know, so I don't like mistake it again or anything.
And the other thing is the different type of Spanish.
Oh,
There's so many. There's like the Guatemalan Spanish, the Mexican Spanish, it's so different because you can say something and they don't understand you, not because you're saying it wrong, but like pronouncing it, but it's the way you phrase the sentence and they're like, what?
Yeah.
That's not what are you saying? It's happened to me before. So it's definitely interesting.
I was gonna mention how another big thing for my Spanish, I think it's a little influence on why my Spanish isn't so good, is because in school, I don't know why they do this. I feel like they should honestly change it. If you're taking a Spanish class, it's Spaniard Spanish. It's not like you can't really choose which Spanish you want to take. It's always just Spaniard Spanish in any Spanish class that you're taking, because for some reason, I guess it's like the most spoken, but I don't really think that's the most spoken in America, Spaniard Spanish, because they speak quick and they say things like coche or like stuff like that. Like coche is like a car, and I'm like, but I know it as like carro or something. And then like a lot of things are just like so differently, and then the way they say things, I feel like they use a lot more of their tongue when they say it because they say it so quick. And yeah, like I've taken like basically like 3 years of Spanish, and all of them were just Spaniard Spanish. And then like I would be like, oh, but don't you say it this way because I learned it this way? And they'd be like, oh yeah, you say it like if you're in that country, but if you're in this country, then you say it that way.
I just realized that. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I want to get back into that conversation. But in the meantime, we're going to take a short little break and go over some PSAs. All right. So, as you all know, we have our open mic every last Friday of the month. So, that will be the 27th of October from 6 to 8 p.m. Sign up, guys. We are very open to new artists here. We know there's a lot of local artists here, and I'm getting information that it will be a Halloween themed. So dress up if you'd like. If you're a dancer, singer, comedian, actor, please just come on and show up. We'd love to see your talent. You never know what opportunities will come up. And with that, I'm actually going to transition and say we actually had an open mic performance by Aria Agresiva, a local band group that started off at the open mic. And from the open mic, they have been playing at the Marin County Fair, and they're also going to be our main highlight performance for Dia de los Muertos. So if that's not a sign for you to come join and just be open to new opportunities, I don't know what is. So with that, Day of the Dead is coming up. We have a lot of events, and I'm just going to ask Javier to put the website on the description. So there's a lot of events coming up for me to mention them all. So just go on there, sign up. We need volunteers. There's the car procession and everything. Just you can click on the website and look for the information. And the following thing is we have 10 tickets for, or let me back up. The Mill Valley Film Festival is going on, and last week you guys got the opportunity to listen to Kimberly and Javier have an interview to learn more about the Mill Valley Film Festival. With that, we have been very grateful to have a partnership with the Mill Valley Film Festival. We have 10 tickets for tonight's screening of the Milli Vanilli documentary that is part of the Mill Valley Film Festival. The film starts at 7 p.m. and will be screening at the Centerfell Film Center here on 4th Street. There will also be a screening this Sunday at 2 p.m. if you want to make it tonight. So if you want tickets, you can either DM us on our IG at Tay Radio Marin, or you can leave it in the comment, and I'm pretty sure Javier can get in touch with you. We also have 10 tickets for the shorts program Monsters, Movies, and the Moon this Sunday at 11 a.m. So again, if you want tickets, reach out to Javier. If you're interested in watching these films, like I said, send us a DM on Tay Radio Marin, and we will link the details of each film in the comments. I just want to say that this is a festival, so a lot of the directors, writers, and composers, producers will be there. So if you are interested in film or just want to learn more about how these films are made and ask questions, I highly suggest you all to go. As you know, Tay Radio has been given the opportunity to attend these events, and it's been really fun to learn and just be inspired at the end of each film. With that, I'm gonna go back to our conversation with Kimberly about Spanish. I really found that interesting how you mentioned that when you go take Spanish in school, it's not the Spanish that we're used to. Mm-hmm. I don't actually know the answer to this, but I do want to know why it is.
I know, me too. I've asked actually one of my professors, and she told me basically because it's the most spoken in America, but then when I go to school and I meet people, a lot of them are mostly like Mexicans or Guatemalans, Salvadorians. There aren't really that many people from Spain. I honestly don't really know. I can't really think of anyone that I know that is from Spain, or I don't really know anyone as much, but I guess it's the most spoken. Maybe it was like when it was first, like the system of Spanish was included into the educational system. Mm-hmm. Maybe then that's why it was chosen to be.
In a way, it's like is there a name for it? Like the way British speak English?
British?
And, like the European English, how they speak, and there's a lot of words that are very different. Yeah. And then if you think about the US English, it's also very, very different in many ways. Yeah. So I feel like in a way that kind of it's the same thing. But I agree with you. I always straight off, I tell everybody, if I say something that you're offended, it's not my intention. I learned Spanish, not in Guatemala fully. I learned Spanish here in the U.S. So my Spanish might have some Mexican, Salvadorian, Guatemalan, or many different mixes. That's just because I grew up learning Spanish here. The reading, though, in Spanish is a lot easier than English. That is, for me, is a lot more easy. All right. Mm-hmm. Do you have anything else to add on that?
I don't know. I'm like trying to see why.
If anybody knows, it would be really nice to know if you could leave it in the comments to know more about kind of why the reason it is.
I hope they change it throughout the years just because, or like they give an option of choosing a different type of Spanish class, like to learn like, I don't know, just like give like different options instead of just one.
I think our Spanish is considered castellano. I might be wrong on that. Like, está el español y luego está castellano. I might be wrong on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that when we speak about culture that I actually have not kept that is the clothing. I don't know about you, but back home for me, my clothing is very, very different.
The cortes and everything.
Yeah, the cortes. Oh, you know what they are.
Yeah, and my on my mom's side, because I actually recently learned this. I thought all of Guatemala, like dresses with cortes and all that stuff, I thought it was all of Guatemala, but then I learned that it's not. And it's just certain parts of Guatemala. And where my mom's from, she's from Xela, they use cortes. And
yeah, they do.
Yeah. And then my dad is from Sija, and they don't as much.
Interesting.
Or his family never really did. So it was never something brought upon from their side. And then I know other people, where another thing is like they think that cortes aren't really like anything. Like they don't think too much of it. And yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I personally have not kept because I have just grew up, wearing jeans after, and the flexibility, the moving around is a lot easier because corte, you're very tied up, and the movement you have with your legs, like how wide you step, is very short at times. I grew up actually wearing that. In many ways, I have photos of myself as a baby wearing corte, which is so cute, and I actually have, I think, one pair of my cortes of being a little girl that is still at home, that we've kept at home in Guatemala. But back to it, as I was saying, like even if you live in one place, there's so many different, clothing that you wear. For example, in Guatemala, Xela with Acosta, they'd use a very different traditional clothing because of the weather. Some of them, it's more loose. It looks very different. So it looks very, very nice. Same in Mexico. When I went to Mexico last year, we went to this, to these pueblos, and each one was dressed very different, like in their traditional clothing, some of them. And we learned the history of like, oh, this region dresses like this region dresses like this. So that to me was really cool. I was so like, oh my God, that's amazing how you can live in one place, considered one place, right? But in each area they have different foods, different languages, different dances, different clothing, and it can vary from very small things like a little change, or it can vary from like really big changes. So I thought that was something really, really cool.
Yeah, I feel like how we talked about earlier, how in every family everyone celebrates or does traditions differently. It's the same as like in every town, they do things differently. And just all connects in a way, because then that's how you grew up. So then you take that custom and then bring it over here. When you come over here, you bring it over here and do that. So that's why everyone has like different ways of doing things.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And also, we haven't talked about it, but sports is another one too.
Really?
Yeah. For example, back home, like the sports we play over there, it's football.
Soccer. Like it's considered soccer.
Football. Yeah. Football. And yeah, like I didn't know this. Like one of the biggest well-known sport that Guatemalans are very known for is speed walking. We hold, we have a lot of awards for speed walkers in Guatemala. I didn't even know that.
Maybe that's how I walk so fast.
I don't know. When I read that, I was so amazed. If I'm wrong, just know that I read that in an article.
Okay.
But something I found interesting. But when we come to our American culture, there's football, there's baseball,
football and baseball are like the main American sports.
American football, correction.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So there's different sports as well that is very unique, and I don't know if they in Mexico they have other sports that is from their region. I don't know, but that's also something culturally speaking that is very different. And in the movies, especially for like the U.S., a lot of the big sports considered in the U.S. is football and baseball. Am I missing anything?
Football, baseball.
Where's basket?
Basketball?
Is that here too?
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't.
Is it here?
Don't quote us on this.
I don't know.
And then there's like water polo. I think that's
there's
American.
I don't know. And then there's like rugby, which I don't know where rugby comes from. Or rugby. Rugby. I'm not a big sport person.
I think
so I don't know.
that's from America. I think it's
the way I think of America.
Rugby is actually, I think, from Europe.
Is it?
I think so. It's a Europe sport.
And then Javier's nodding at yes.
We have football, yeah. Okay. And then people just like brought it over here. Because it's kind of like really more recent that a lot of people are starting to play rugby.
See, that's what I mean. That America is like it's like a mix of a lot of things. When people tell me you're American, I always say, well, yeah, I was raised in America, but being in America, like there's so much here. There isn't just one specific culture that represents the American culture. It's a mixture of everything that has kind of come here. And even here in downtown, like there isn't one American food. There's a bunch of mixture. And rugby
yeah,
is from England.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I knew it was from like Europe.
So there's different things, and that's kind of the message we want to send here for Tay, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that just, be proud of your culture, and also remember that there's many families who carry different cultures, and that's okay. And you don't need to accept them. You don't need to understand them. Just that respect of saying that's how you do it, and it's okay. When we don't really have one culture that represents us. I'm very proud to have many different things from Guatemala and some things that I've kind of grabbed on from here. And I'm proud of those. Yeah,
I forgot what's that word that they say America's known for, like, because there's a bunch of different cultures that come, like a bunch of different cultures here, a lot of different traditions, and everyone does everything differently. There's like a word that I've heard that
multicultural.
No,
that's us.
But I heard that there's like a word that America is known for just because there's so much diversity here, and just everyone brings in their own thing, and it's not just centered to just like the American way. It's centered throughout like everyone, because there's like a lot of different people from all over the place that come to America.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I do not know.
Word for it. I've heard it before, and I'm blanking on it.
I'm just thinking multicultural, because that really is what we are.
It is.
I don't know. It's been pretty interesting, and I have a younger brother, and I feel like one of the biggest responsibilities that I have is for him to always know our culture, and that's what I hope that our, like, at least from my side, that our my future generation, that they can continue on with a lot of cultural things. And even today, I'm learning a lot from Guatemala's culture in general. For example, Dia de los Muertos. That isn't something I grew up celebrating. Again, because I'm growing up Christian, that wasn't something we celebrated. But working and being involved with different cultures, they talk about Dia de los Muertos, and I'm like, hey, what does that look like? Can you explain that to me? And they'll explain it, and I'm like, wait a second, I think I remember something similar back home. And now, with the Day of the Dead event, this is where I kind of do research, and I'm like, oh, this is how Guatemalan celebrate it. Oh, I did not know that. And for example, my mom told me, oh yeah, that's why they make atol de elote on a certain time, because that's something that we offer to our ancestors who have passed. Atol de elote wait, I said atol de elote. That is,
I love atol de elote.
It's so good. That is atol, like a hot drink of corn. Atol de elote, yeah.
Kind of, but
yeah, it's corn.
Yeah, but some people make it differently. Like, I've had it in different ways where it's like they leave the corn in it, or they don't leave.
Yeah, some leave. I like it with the corn, like a little pieces.
A little bit.
Yeah, when you drink it, like it has a little crunch.
I want some now.
Same. Anybody know where we can get atol de elote?
I think at like Mi Tierra, I think they might sell them like.
Oh,
in
that'd
the
be really good
in the
right now.
mornings is when they have like atol. I know that I don't know if it's every mornings, but I know they have like atol in the mornings and like some type of like tamales in the morning too, like different types. But it's only like in the mornings. I never see them in the afternoon.
Oh man, I would want one. What was I saying? I lost track. The Dia de los Muertos. And then I learned just recently, and Karina told me this, and I was like, I don't think so. And she said Guatemalans on Dia de los Muertos, they make really big kites.
Oh,
And she left me with that curiosity, and I was like, really? Like,
Huge.
I remember growing up making kites, like when my siblings and we would make, just my brother and we would make kites with like sticks outside and like just kind of reusable things we would find, and we would, have our kites kind of going up in the air. That's how kind of like how we did it, but I didn't know that. So I went on Google, because again, we can now. I said kind of Guatemala kites, and I just realized that there's this huge festival that they do with enormous kites, and each kite that they do it with a representation of something, whether it's women's rights or children's rights, or it's something with nature, environmental protection. They do these amazing kites that are handmade, and they're put up, and they look absolutely, it's a work of art, let me tell you. And I was amazed, and I didn't know that came from part of where I was born. So a lot of the things that I tell myself is to make sure that my little brother, he was born here, so he knows what our culture is. And when we go back home, I always like to learn with whether it's my uncles and aunts or my grandparents, like, what are you doing? And there's a lot of things I'm like, I didn't know we do that. And really embracing that and taking it in and being proud of it. And of course, there's a lot of things I've also had to let go of culturally. And I think maybe a lot of people have too. And an example and a very broad and big one would be like here living, especially like the machismo. A lot of families have to let that go in many ways, and some can't let it go. So I'm just giving you like a very drastic example, but there's a lot of things. I don't know if you've had a lot of things in your family that has been kind of pushed out.
Oh, machismo is definitely a big thing in my family. It hasn't been pushed out, but I would say, I think that, and then a lot of times my family kind of like shaming on other people's culture, I guess. I feel like that's a big thing. I know that a lot of like other Guatemalans, like my family knows like other Guatemalans, and then they do things maybe differently, and like my family kind of shames them on like not doing it their way. And I've also heard like other families like shame other families for doing things a different way. And I feel like that's something that they need to like lose in a way, just like realizing that everyone does things their own way. Like, as we mentioned, like with the cortes, like I know some families who think that like that is kind of like they would consider it dumb and like it's
Outdated.
Really, yeah, it's like outdated. It's like, why are you like still bringing that here and stuff?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, and I feel like they just need to like let go of like trying to like have other people fit into their category when it's like never gonna be that way, and everyone wants to carry their own traditions. It's like a lot of people value culture a lot more than other people, and just learn to like respect it. I feel like for my family, they need to do that.
No, you brought that up, and I just remembered that for a lot of people, it's like, why do you bring the corte here? If you go down in Canal, you see a lot more women wear those than back in the day. And the reason behind it was people were scared of wearing that.
Yeah.
And
people were scared of being like targeted by like,
because of the clothing.
Yeah. By like white people or something.
Yeah.
The racism that goes on.
Yeah, so a lot of people, but now I go down there and you can often see a lot of women wearing it. And my grandma, she has always been very, very proud, and she says it like, I feel just way more comfortable wearing my corte, and she wears it if we have a very fancy celebration, or even her just going somewhere, she'll wear it. And at times I'm like, you know, like, wow, I'm so proud that she wears it, but I can't. Like, I just don't feel comfortable. Not like wearing it wise. It's just, I'm proud. I've worn it a couple times, but just physically talking, like, I feel like I don't have a lot of movement, but she feels comfortable. And we've had family sometimes say that as well. Like, oh, just why you bring it over here? But I think it's beautiful. I think owning it, saying, hey, I like it, and being happy is something very important. And yeah.
I've never worn one.
You never worn one?
No.
I think I wore one for...
I feel sorry.
No,
go ahead. Just bad that I've never even been to Guatemala either.
Hey, don't feel bad. I think eventually the right time will come and you'll go, and maybe your expectations might be different. Maybe they might be better, maybe not. I think everybody has their own individual experience.
Yeah. I don't really have any expectations or anything. I just like kind of imagine how it might be. Just like the way that people describe it and everything. I feel like it's a lot more, or I'm saying this based more on like Xela, because my mom has like talked to me about like her town, and then I've seen photos of like where my dad lives, and it's like a lot more like naturey, and they live like kind of, my dad lives more like in the mountains a little bit more. And
Xela is more city.
yeah, I was gonna say that Xela is more city, so then it's like
We used to have a store.
expectations.
Yeah. We used to have a store with my abuelita. So our house is like in the very I can't say it in English. La orilla del camino. At
The side of
the side of the street. Yeah, right?
the road.
Yeah, the road. See, this is what happens with bilingual. Like, my brain can't say some things in English too. And we used to have a store. We used to have a tienda, and we would sell like everything people needed, from school supplies to things. And we used to get our like major bulk things from Xela. We would go in the bus, and let me tell you that the buses for transit in Guate are my favorite, better than here,
Really?
because of the way they style it, the way they some of the buses are very well painted and stuff. Yeah, but they're school buses. That's what they use for transit.
Really?
At least from my hometown, that's how the transit to go to the city to it's
Do you pay for them, or how does that?
you do pay for them, the transit, but it's like this one, it's very modern and like it's nice. I'm not saying it's bad, it's nice, but I prefer like this artistic style though from back home, because that's how it is. And we used to go on those buses and go like buy everything we need, and everything would go on the top, and that's how we would have our fill the stock in our tienda.
My mom has a tienda too, but she sold it to her sister who's over there because she's not over there.
Oh, that's so cool.
And
Yeah,
she grew up just like running it.
Yeah, that's how we used to do it. And then we also had like, I don't know, it's this whole culture. I am very proud of my culture and how I grew up, and I just encourage everyone else to embrace it. And if you don't know much about your culture, don't be ashamed or feel embarrassed. Just, everybody grew up in different times. You can do your own research. And yeah, do you have things you would like to add?
I just want to emphasize on respecting others' cultures and how they do things, and to not shame on it, because I see that a lot within families that I know, in my own families. So yeah, I would want to put that out there. And then if you want to learn more about your culture, just seek into it and ask those around you who are in the same culture as you, and you might learn things that you didn't know that your family did, and maybe you want to bring it a part of yours.
Yeah, I love that. And I would just add to, there's again maybe cultural things that don't fit with you anymore. And like you said, even if your family is against you or stuff, but you want to kind of embrace that, just know that it's okay too. And it might be hard, but at the end of the day, just know that there isn't one culture that is right or wrong. We all kind of have individually, and kind of shapes who we are, really, of all of that. And as a reminder to make sure to visit the websites that we had said at the end. Day of the Dead. I didn't say the Mill Valley Film Festival's website is vff.com. And yeah, make sure you can follow us on Instagram, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, YouTube. And if you want to be a guest on the show, please DM us. We're very open to having you all be here and have this experience as well. And if you have suggestions on what shows you want us to have, feel free to also share those with us. With that being said, we're so happy to be here with you all. I'm really happy that I got to be here as a host again, and it's been a while. And as you know, we're just the three of us for now, but we are embracing it and loving doing the work we do for you guys and also for us. With that, we will see you all next week on Friday.